Hello everyone, I'm Chris Erkley and welcome to the PE Crime Blotter, a weekly look at crime here in Riverside and San Bernardino counties. We begin with crime headlines. Temecula is buzzing about the arrest of an elementary school teacher's aide after her 12-year-old daughter was seen digging food out of a trash can Thursday while naked. 40-year-old Tracy Lynn Betts, who works at Vale Elementary School, was arrested on suspicion of felony child endangerment. The Sheriff's Department says Betts had left her daughter in a vehicle about a block from the school. Betts has yet to tell her side of the story. A San Bernardino man was killed by Riverside police after vowing he'd rather die than return to jail. Police were chasing 38-year-old Danny James Bond on foot when he pulled a gun on them. There was a warrant out for his arrest, and a friend said Bond told him he would rather die than return to prison. According to authorities, an immigration and customs agent who once lived in Marietta shot a superior last week before another agent killed him. The shooting happened Thursday in Long Beach after Ezekiel Garcia had a discussion about his job performance with a high-ranking official. Another agent who had just left the meeting rushed back in after shots rang out. The agent eventually drew his gun and shot Garcia, but not before a struggle for Garcia's weapon. The superior, 51-year-old Kevin Kozak, survived but suffered at least 6 bullet wounds. Garcia's family lived in Marietta until about 2 years ago. Neighbors say he worked long hours and mostly kept to himself. Medical examiners are awaiting the arrival of dental records to confirm the identity of a 50-year-old Fontana man who was killed last week during a fiery explosion of his home. A sheriff's arson and bomb team is continuing its investigation of the 9:15 p.m. blast Thursday along the 14400 block of Southwood Drive. According to neighbors, the couple who lived in the home were in the process of marital separation. A Marietta woman remains in a Tennessee jail Tuesday after she was found last week at the home of country singer Kenny Chesney. 31-year-old Melissa Carol Mansfield said she was meeting Chesney when police responded to the country star's home near Franklin, Tennessee at about 2 a.m. last Wednesday. Chesney's parents told police neither they nor Chesney knew who Mansfield was. She was arrested on suspicion of criminal trespassing and public intoxication. Bail is set at $1,000. And that does it for this week's Crime Headlines. All right, it is now time for our On the Docket segment. We're taking a look at the big court cases this week in both Riverside and San Bernardino County. Joining me now is the Press Enterprise's Rich Diatley. Rich, our first case involves Michael Sykes and a gang rape in a park in Moreno Valley back in March.
Sykes is the only defendant who's an adult, 19 at the time of the alleged crime. He and others were charged with luring a developmentally disabled 11-year-old girl into that park bathroom where they allegedly assaulted her. He faces a possible life in prison if convicted on all the charges he faces, including kidnap for rape and rape. He has pleaded not guilty.
Then also a case out of San Jacinto involving 2 defendants on bribery and money laundering charges.
These are the last 2 defendants of one-time 9-defendant case in San Jacinto corruption case. Former City Councilman James Potts and developer Robert Osborne are having a trial readiness conference on Friday. Trial ostensibly is set for Monday now. Both refused plea bargain offers offered last year, and the other 7 defendants did accept those offers and have pleaded out and since been sentenced.
And finally, also on Friday, Nathan James Gastineau, a San Bernardino County sheriff involved with sex charges involving an explorer.
He is the last of 3 men who were charged last summer with such crimes. Gastineau, the other 2 have pleaded out. One was a friend of Gastineau's, the other also a Riverside, San Bernardino County sheriff's deputy who entered pleas. Gastineau is the remaining defendant. The Sheriff's Department in San Bernardino County has since changed rules on how deputies interact with the explorers on ride-alongs and other activities.
All right, thanks, Rich. That does it for our On the Docket segment. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, in-depth analysis. You want to hear this one. A Moreno Valley School Board member facing possible attempted murder charges.
We cover the issues you care about. Here at the Press Enterprise and PE.com, local news matters whether you live along Route 66 or on Main Street. We provide regional analysis and in-depth investigation of issues like education, transportation, the environment, and much more. Important matters are covered here. That is how we keep you connected to your community. The Press Enterprise and PE.com. For home delivery, call 1-800-794-NEWS.
Welcome back to the PE Crime Blotter. It is now time for our in-depth segment. Joining me now is John Asbury from the Press Enterprise. John, we're talking about Mike Rios, the school board member from Moreno Valley, arrested on attempted murder charges last week.
Yeah, district attorney officials on Tuesday filed 5 felony charges, 2 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of assault with a semi-automatic weapon, and witness intimidation. Now, Rios first reported that he was the victim of this shooting, that 2 men came to his house and opened fire. But as police began investigating and looking at evidence and witnesses, it turns out that evidence pointed to Rios being the active shooter in this case.
And he was in court today. What exactly happened? You were there.
He was. He was scheduled for an arraignment, and that arraignment was postponed just so he could hire an attorney. But it took an interesting turn when he asked the judge to be released on his own recognizance. And the judge pretty much scoffed and reprimanded him for that. Rios made a very impassioned plea in terms of how he had represented the community for close to 10 years, as well as 2 years on the school board. And the judge told him that this had nothing to do with his elected office. These were the same as serious charges. And until this preliminary hearing where these charges are heard out, she has to assume for bail's sake that these allegations are true.
Now, any type of jail time or charges of this nature would definitely affect his future with the school board.
Yeah, he's being held on $1 million bail. And as long as he's in jail, if he misses 3 consecutive months on the school board, he would automatically have to leave office. If he does happen to get out for somehow, he would be able to continue serving until there is a conviction. And if there was a conviction, then that would also be an automatic dismissal from the school board. The only other option the school board has is a recall, which experts say is very unlikely just because of the cost and effort that goes into it.
All right, John, thanks. Be sure to keep us updated on all the developments with Rios' case. That does it for our in-depth segment. Next, we'll have John here for Most Wanted. It's now time for our Inland's Most Wanted segment. We're tracking down the most wanted criminals in both Riverside and San Bernardino County. John Asbury is back with us. We begin in Indio with Carlos Nunez Portillo, wanted for rape charges.
Yeah, in 2009, a 14-year-old girl came forward and told police that he had been molesting her since she was about the last 2 years. And during that process, he threatened to kick her and her mother out onto the streets if she ever came forward to authorities.
Then moving on to Temecula, Jonathan Daniel Joaquin, wanted for attempted murder.
Joaquin is part of a story we talked about last week where they're part of an old Temecula street gang, and they are charged with attempted murder even though they didn't actually strike anybody. They're wanted for shooting at the Temecula Gardens apartment complex, and a bullet entered an apartment where it nearly hit a woman and her young child.
And then in Miraloma, also wanted for attempted murder is Juan Jesus Perez.
Yeah, Perez is wanted after a man and a woman were found stabbed inside an apartment. And when police arrived, they pointed to the woman's estranged husband as the suspect. Now, police believe that he used a key from when he used to live there to enter the home, and while stabbing them, said he wanted to kill them.
And then finally, our last guy in Moreno Valley, he's wanted for murder, Reynaldo Loya.
Yeah, Reynaldo Loya is wanted after police found a body in the remote eastern edge of Moreno Valley off Theodore and Alessandro, and police linked tire tracks to his vehicle. Now, during that process, they had realized that he had called the victim prior, saying that he was willing to pay off a debt. The victim went to collect the money, and that's when the police believed the killing occurred. The suspect was later heard telling relatives that he wanted to flee to Mexico because he was afraid that authorities were going to link him to the killing. All
right, now, John, if anyone has any type of information on any of these crimes, where can they call?
Authorities are asking anyone with information to call 855-21-CATCH.
All right, John, thanks for joining us. That does it for our Inland's Most Wanted segment. When we come back, we have Odd Crimes. a story involving F-16s and our very own President of the United States. Don't go anywhere, you're watching the PE Crime Blotter.
We cover the issues you care about. Here at the Press Enterprise and PE.com, local news matters whether you live along Route 66 or on Main Street. We provide regional analysis and in-depth investigation of issues like education, transportation, the environment, and much more. Important matters are covered here. That is how we keep you connected to your community. The Press Enterprise and PE.com. For home delivery, call 1-800-794-NEWS.
All right, now time for our Off the Beat segment. Joining us now is the Press Enterprise's Mark Muckenfoos. This one, an interesting one involving F-16s and the President of the United States. He was in Southern California last week. A small Cessna invaded the airspace that was reserved for where the President was, and some F-16s from March Air Force Base came into play.
Yeah, this happened on Thursday when the President was in Los Angeles and down near Long Beach. There's a small contingent out at March Air Reserve Base here in Riverside that probably few people realize is there. It's a part of the 144th Air Wing National Guard that's actually based in Fresno, but they keep two F-16s down here at March Air Base. They're used for emergency situations such as this. They scrambled, they intercepted a Cessna 138 over Long Beach and forced it to land there, and came to find out that the pilot was not only straying into restricted airspace, but he was carrying 10 kilos of marijuana in the plane as well.
So, probably not what they were expecting, maybe viewing the plane as any type of possible threat, but they probably weren't expecting to find drugs on the plane.
No, in fact, the pilot that I spoke to out there at March said they got a good laugh out of the whole situation when they were finished and found out that the marijuana had been discovered there.
All right, well, I'm sure he was very surprised when he had two F-16s accompanying him in his small Cessna plane. Luckily, though, that's all it was just a minor threat of sorts. Thanks, Mark, for joining us. That does it for our Off the Beat segment and also wraps up this week's PE Crime Blotter. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.